Rain taps against a cracked window. Sarah, exhausted, thumbs a message through trembling fingers. Please, I need help. My kids haven't eaten. She hits send, unaware it went to a stranger. Miles away in a glass tower glowing against the night, Daniel Reed, millionaire untouchable, leans back in silence, staring at the words, hunger, kids, help. Something in him shifts, a feeling he hasn't known in years. Morning comes too soon for Sarah. The alarm buzzes at 5 a.m., but she's already awake, staring at the cracked ceiling above her bed. Sleep doesn't visit much these days. Rent's overdue. The fridge hums like a cruel reminder of its emptiness. 2 kids still sleeping in the next room, their faces peaceful, unaware of the storm outside these walls. She works at a diner by day, cleaning offices by night. 2 jobs, but the numbers never add up. Every paycheck seems smaller than the last, eaten alive by bills, medicine, bus fares. The landlord has stopped smiling when he sees her. Sarah moves through life like someone balancing on a thin wire. One wrong step and everything could fall apart. Some nights she sits at the kitchen table long after the kids are asleep, staring at a single loaf of bread, wondering how many meals she can stretch from it. People talk about dreams, college, vacations, new cars. Sarah doesn't dream much anymore. Her dream is simple: full stomachs, a roof that doesn't leak, kids who don't feel the weight she carries. The tears come when no one's looking. Not loud, messy tears, just quiet streams running down tired cheeks, like the body can't hold in the pain any longer. Every tear feels like it carries a message. I'm trying. I'm fighting. But I'm so tired, and yet tomorrow she'll wake up and fight again for them. Always for them. She doesn't know that one late-night message sent in desperation has already begun turning the gears of a story that will change everything. Miles away, a stranger reads her words, feeling a crack in a life built on steel and glass. Daniel Reed built an empire out of code and ambition. 42, sharp suit, corner office above the clouds. He owned everything except the one thing money never bought: peace. His life was a checklist of success. Stock prices climbing. Articles calling him a visionary. Photos in magazines beside people with perfect smiles. But when the cameras left, the nights were quiet. Too quiet. He lived in glass towers where no one knocked on his door without an appointment. He ate dinners prepared by strangers, signed checks that changed lives he'd never see. And then came the message, a single line glowing on his phone in the middle of another silent night. Please, I need help. My kids haven't eaten. He stared at it longer than he meant to. Something about it felt raw, different from the daily flood of business emails and investor pitches. It wasn't asking for millions. It wasn't selling anything. It was a mother's voice, breaking through walls even steel couldn't keep up. Sarah set her phone aside, thinking the message would vanish into the void, like so many prayers unanswered. Wrong number, right number. What did it matter? She had to be up in 3 hours for work. Life didn't pause for hope, but Daniel couldn't let it go. The words followed him through the night, through the quiet hum of his penthouse, through the cold perfection of a life people envied but he barely lived in. He told himself it wasn't his problem. Probably a mistake, maybe even a scam. But somewhere beneath the boardroom armor and endless zeros in his bank account, the words scratched at something he hadn't felt in years. My kids haven't eaten. Sarah didn't know the man on the other side was someone whose name lit up financial headlines. She didn't know he could buy the whole building she lived in without blinking. And Daniel, he didn't know why her words felt heavier than any deal he'd closed, any empire he'd built. 2 lives, one drowning, one numb, about to crash into each other like 2 storms meeting in the dark. Neither of them ready for what was coming. Daniel stared at the screen, the words from that stranger still echoing through him. My kids haven't eaten. He typed the logical thing, wrong number, ready to send it, to stay in the safe, distant world he knew, but his thumb froze. Why this message? Why tonight? He'd ignored countless cries for help before, emails, letters, people lining up outside his company's gates. Yet this one felt different. He erased the words slowly. He typed instead, "What's your name?" Across town, Sarah read the reply with tired eyes, surprise flickering through the exhaustion. She wasn't expecting anyone to answer, much less ask Sarah. She wrote back, "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bother you. I just didn't know where else to turn." Daniel leaned back, the city stretching beneath him like another universe. Sarah, a real person. A mother trying to hold the world together with nothing but her bare hands. He could walk away. He should, but he didn't. Instead, he typed a line that would tie his life to hers in ways neither could imagine. "Tell me what's going on." The messages came slowly at first, like she wasn't sure if he'd stay. Then the dam broke. She told him about the diner job she lost last month. The eviction notice taped to her door like a threat. The way her son wheezes at night, because the inhaler ran out days ago. Each word landed heavy, slicing through Daniel's penthouse silence. He read about the empty fridge, the landlord's warnings, the kids hiding under blankets when the power went out. Her sentences weren't polished. They didn't need to be. They carried the raw weight of someone cornered by life, swinging at shadows. Daniel sat there, phone glowing in his hand, feeling a crack spread through the flawless life he'd built. For the first time in years, someone's pain was louder than the hum of his city below. Daniel mentioned it over lunch the next day, almost like a confession. A single text from a stranger. A mother asking for help. His friends smirked over their glasses of wine. "Scammer," one of them said, shaking his head. "They all have a story." "That's how they get you," another laughed. "Next she'll be a prince from some island asking for a wire transfer." The table erupted in jokes, but Daniel didn't join in. He kept seeing her words on the screen. Eviction, asthma, kids hungry. He wanted to believe them, believe it was fake, so he could walk away without guilt. Life was simpler when feelings didn't interfere, but something in his chest wouldn't let it go. It wasn't money she asked for. It wasn't even him, not really. So it was help, and that single word refused to leave him alone. Daniel didn't text her about it. He didn't ask for details or bank accounts. He just found a small grocery store near her address, ordered bread, milk, eggs, fruit, simple things, and had them delivered under a different name. That evening, Sarah opened the door to bags she didn't expect. For a second, she thought it was a mistake. Wrong house, wrong person, but then she saw the note taped to the side for the kids. No name, nothing else. She carried the bags inside, hands shaking. Her children ran over, eyes wide as she pulled out carton after carton. Bread still warm, bananas bright yellow, a gallon of milk heavier than gold. They laughed, actually laughed, over groceries. Over things most people grab on autopilot. Sarah turned away so they wouldn't see her cry. She didn't know who sent it. But in that small apartment, for the first time in weeks, dinner didn't feel like a fight against the world. The groceries helped. But the world didn't suddenly turn soft. At school the next week, Sarah's son Jacob walked in wearing the same sneakers he'd outgrown months ago. The soles were thin, the fabric torn near the toe. By lunch the whispers started. Then the laughter. Kids pointing, joking loud enough for him to hear. He sat alone, pretending not to care, eyes fixed on the table. But when Sarah picked him up that afternoon, he climbed into the back seat without a word. She asked about his day. He shrugged. She didn't push. Mothers know when the truth is too heavy to carry out loud. That night, after the kids were asleep, she texted Daniel. Told him about the shoes, the teasing, how Jacob barely touched dinner because embarrassment swallows your appetite whole. Daniel read every word, jaw tight. He didn't reply right away. He just stared at the screen, picturing a little boy shrinking under the weight of laughter, the same way Sarah had been shrinking under bills and notices, and for the first time, Daniel realized this wasn't about one night of groceries. This was about a family slowly being broken by the world, piece by piece. Daniel didn't tell Sarah he was coming. No driver, no assistant, just him behind the wheel of a car worth more than the houses he passed. Street by street, the city changed. Polished sidewalks gave way to cracked concrete. Street lights buzzed weakly, some not working at all. He parked near her block and walked. No destination. Just eyes wide open. A group of kids played soccer barefoot in a dirt lot, the ball patched with duct tape. A woman carried groceries in one arm, a crying baby in the other. A man sat on a porch with his head in his hands, like the weight of the day was too much to hold. Then he saw Sarah's building, peeling paint, a missing step, a single window glowing softly against the dark. This wasn't numbers on a charity report. This wasn't a photo op with polite smiles. It was hunger, struggle, survival, and something inside him snapped awake. This couldn't end with one grocery delivery. Too many kids, too many houses like this. It wasn't charity anymore. It was war. And for the first time in years, Daniel Reed felt a fire in his chest. Driving back through the night, Daniel kept seeing those kids in the dirt lot. The woman with the baby, the porch with the man staring at nothing, and somewhere in all of it he saw his mother. She raised him alone, working 2 jobs, coming home bone-tired but never breaking in front of him. Back then, no one showed up with groceries. No stranger knocked with help. What if there was a way to change that? Not charity with red tape and cameras. Not paperwork or waiting lists. Just people helping people. Direct, simple, human. A platform where a mother could ask for shoes and someone across the city could send them. A family needed food and a stranger made it happen. Fast, quiet, no judgment. The idea lit something in him. For the first time, he saw the shape of what this could become. Daniel told her about the idea one evening, his messages coming fast, like the words had been waiting years to escape. A platform for real help and no middlemen. No paperwork, no begging strangers to believe your story. Sarah read every line carefully, the glow from her phone lighting her tired face. It sounded good, too good. She'd heard speeches before, from charities, from landlords, even from relatives promising to help when things got bad. They all disappeared when it mattered most, so she didn't text back right away. She sat there staring at his words, wondering what kind of man built skyscrapers but cared about torn shoes and empty fridges. Finally, she typed, "People promise things all the time. They don't stay." Daniel stared at that message for a long moment before replying, "Then maybe it's time someone did." The days began to blur. Daniel stayed up in his high-rise office long after the city went dark, sketching out plans on yellow notepads, voice hoarse from late-night calls with developers, coffee cups stacked on his desk like trophies from a war he hadn't won yet. Across town, Sarah tucked her kids into bed, then opened her laptop at the kitchen table. Between extra shifts at the diner and cleaning jobs on weekends, she tested early versions of the platform, clicking through rough pages, sending him lists of what confused her, what needed fixing. Sometimes they texted at 2 in the morning, both running on caffeine and stubbornness. Daniel saw her exhaustion in the typos, the delayed replies when a child woke coughing in the background. Sarah saw his in the timestamps, messages coming at hours when billionaires were supposed to be sleeping, not building lifelines for strangers. Neither said it out loud, but both knew this was bigger than them now. The first investor meeting should have felt familiar. Daniel had built companies before. He knew this dance, but this time the room was colder. He laid out the idea with slides, data, early prototypes Sarah helped test. A platform where help moved fast, directly from one human to another. When he finished, the silence felt heavy. One man leaned back in his leather chair, smirking. "Charity doesn't scale," he said, like it was a punchline. Another added, "You'll spend millions for what? A few feel-good headlines? It's not sustainable." The laughter was quiet but sharp, the kind that slices on the way out. Daniel kept his jaw tight, his smile polite, even as the heat climbed up his neck. He'd heard no before, every entrepreneur has. But this felt different. This wasn't about money. It was about people who didn't have time for men in suits to debate scale while kids skipped dinner. He left the building with his fists clenched in his pockets, the city lights blurring around him. For the first time since the idea was born, doubt slipped in like a cold draft under the door. Sarah read his late-night text. They laughed at the idea. Said it would never work. He didn't add anything after that. No jokes, no promises. Just that one line. And something in her sank. She pictured him in some glass tower meeting. Men in suits shaking their heads while she, just a single mom with nothing but a story, was the reason he was wasting his time. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was pulling him under. Her replies started shrinking after that. Where she once sent long messages about features for the platform or stories of neighbors who needed help, now it was just, "Thanks for trying," or "Maybe it's too much," Daniel noticed. He could feel the distance in every period she typed. One night she almost wrote the words circling her mind. "Forget it. You don't owe me this," but she didn't. Instead, she stared at the screen, wondering if it was kinder to let him go before the whole thing broke apart, before he realized she wasn't worth saving. The doubt didn't arrive loudly. It slipped in quiet like cold air through a cracked door. Daniel sat alone in his office long past midnight, the city spread below like a glittering lie. Money was draining fast. The platform was half built, half broken. Investors had vanished. Sarah had gone quiet. For the first time since that night, she texted. He wondered if they were both chasing smoke. He opened his phone to shut it all down, closed the tab, closed the dream. When a message lit up the screen, it was a photo. Sarah's son, Jacob, grinning ear to ear, wearing a jacket someone donated through the platform's tiny pilot test. Too big on him, sleeves covering his hands, but the smile was bigger than the coat itself. One look at that picture, and Daniel's hand froze. Maybe the world wasn't laughing. Maybe it was just waiting for proof. And right there in that smile, he found it. Daniel stared at the picture until the office lights clicked off automatically around him. That smile, the one on Jacob's face, wouldn't leave his head. It was proof the idea worked even on the smallest scale. Proof the world wasn't completely numb. The next morning, he called his lawyer. No hesitation. No second guessing. One of his penthouses went on the market that week, the one with the private elevator and the skyline view people fought to be photographed in. Colleagues thought he was crazy. Sell a property to fund a project investors already rejected. They didn't get it. It wasn't about return on investment anymore. It was about Jacob's smile, about Sarah's quiet texts in the middle of the night, about families like hers who didn't have time to wait for someone richer, braver or smarter to step in, Daniel had decided. The platform would live, even if he had to bleed for it. It started with one article. A small-town reporter, curious about the man selling a penthouse to fund what he called a bridge between hurting families and helping hearts, wrote a piece titled, "Strangers Helping Strangers, No PR Team." No press release, just raw truth printed on thin paper. By morning, the headline was everywhere, shared on Facebook by grandmothers, tweeted by college kids, whispered in church groups. Donations trickled in first. A single mom sent $5. A retired veteran sent $20. Then, as the story spread, the trickle became a flood. Names Daniel had never heard of, truck drivers, teachers, teenagers with part-time jobs, signed up on the platform. Not to ask for help, but to give it. Sarah texted him that night, "There's food in the fridge." For the first time in months, it's full. Daniel read the message twice, a slow smile pulling at the edges of his face. Finally, after all the late nights, the failures, the ridicule, the world was paying attention, and it was answering back with kindness. It happened on a rainy Thursday. Daniel was in the office, eyes bleary from staring at spreadsheets, when the notification came in 100 families helped this month. He froze, reading it twice like he didn't trust the number. 100 kitchens stocked, 100 kids going to bed with full stomachs, 100 families who wouldn't wake up tomorrow to empty cupboards. Sarah saw the update too. She sat on the edge of her bed, phone in her lap, and for the first time in a long time she cried not from fear, but from relief. All this, every meal, every smile, every moment of hope, had started with one accidental text sent on a night when she thought the world had forgotten her. She texted Daniel, "Thank you. You have no idea what this means," but he did. He remembered the first message, the one about her kids not eating. Now, 100 families knew what it felt like to breathe again. Daniel leaned back in his chair, the storm outside rattling the windows, and for the first time in months, he let himself believe. Maybe this crazy idea was bigger than both of them. A lifestyle influencer with 3 million followers found the Strangers Helping Strangers story and shared it with 5 simple words: faith in humanity. Restored. By nightfall, the internet caught fire. The platform's link was everywhere. Instagram reels, TikTok duets, church group chats. Families wrote things like, "We needed this. The world needed this." Donations didn't just climb. They exploded. Sarah sat at her small kitchen table, phone in hand, kids laughing in the background as she scrolled through comments pouring in by the second. This was the same woman who once sent a desperate text to the wrong number. Now watching strangers fight to be part of her story, but attention cuts both ways. Critics crawled out too. Tweets claiming Daniel was chasing headlines, Reddit threads calling Sarah an actress, people twisting hope into suspicion. Daniel read them all in silence. He'd expected this storm, but it still stung. Then Sarah texted, "Ignore them. Kids ate tonight. That's what matters." Daniel put his phone down slowly. She was right. Fame was noise. The mission was real. 100 families fed. And this was only the beginning. The news hit like a gut punch. Daniel had trusted him, his own CFO, the man who handled every check, every wire, every promise made to donors. But the audit told the truth. Money meant for families had been siphoned off, tucked into accounts that didn't belong to the platform, didn't belong to Hope. Overnight, donors pulled back. Headlines shifted from miracle project to mismanaged funds. Sarah texted once, "Is it over?" Daniel didn't answer right away. He stood in his office, the city glowing below, the weight of betrayal pressing on his chest. It wasn't just money stolen. It was trust, momentum, the fragile belief people had placed in this dream. For the first time since that wrong number text, the platform wasn't growing, it was crumbling. Daniel sat in his office, the betrayal still echoing in his head, when Sarah's call came through. Her voice shook, but not with fear, with determination. "Daniel," she said softly, "you can't quit. Not now. There are families out there who don't care about headlines or scandals. They just need to eat. They need heat in the winter. They need someone who doesn't give up on them." He didn't speak. The anger in him was still raw, the taste of failure bitter. "Listen," she continued, her voice breaking. "This started because I was desperate enough to text a stranger, and that stranger saved my kids. Don't let one man's greed erase everything you built." Her words landed heavy. Through the storm in his mind, they felt like sunlight forcing its way through dark clouds for the first time in days. Daniel looked up. Daniel walked into the press conference with no script, no PR team whispering in his ear. Just the truth. Cameras flashed as he stepped to the podium, eyes locked on the reporters waiting to tear the story apart. He told them everything. The audit, the stolen funds, the man he'd trusted with the beating heart of the project. No excuses, no hiding. Then in front of the world, Daniel announced the CFO's termination and a full independent investigation. "From this moment forward," he said, voice steady, "every dollar given will be trackable, public, no secrets, no shadows." For a moment, silence hung in the air, then the crowd erupted. Applause, shouts of support. Even reporters nodded, the story already shifting in real time. Donors began reposting clips of his speech. Comments flooded in. "This is leadership. This is how you fight for what matters." The betrayal had sparked doubt, but Daniel's honesty lit a fire bigger than before. Sarah had never been on a stage before. The studio lights were blinding, the cameras cold and unblinking. She clutched the microphone with both hands, as if it might steady her racing heart. Daniel stood off to the side, giving her a small nod. This wasn't about him anymore. It was about the story that started it all. When the host asked how it began, Sarah swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "I texted the wrong number," she said softly. "But maybe it was the right one." The room went silent. Even the cameramen stopped moving. She spoke about the eviction notices, the empty fridge, her son's asthma inhaler running out, about strangers sending groceries, about watching a small idea grow into something that could feed 100 families in a single month. "I thought nobody cared," she admitted, tears gathering. But I was wrong. By the time she finished, the audience was on its feet. Social media exploded with clips of her speech. Donations surged again, faster than ever. Daniel watched from the wings, knowing the project finally had what money couldn't buy: heart. Sarah had given it a human face. It felt like the country woke up all at once. The morning after Sarah's trembling words hit national TV, donations slammed into the platform so fast, the servers barely kept up. $10 from a teacher in Kansas, $50 from a truck driver in Montana, $5,000 from a company in New York. Daniel sat in the command center, eyes locked on the screen as the numbers spun upward like a slot machine hitting jackpot. Each click wasn't just money. It was heat in a cold apartment. Dinner on a table that sat empty for too long. By the end of the week, the platform had leapt from 1 city to 20 states. Volunteers offered cars, time, skills. Restaurants called, donating hot meals. Retired truckers offered to drive shipments through the night. Sarah watched videos pour in. Families crying over boxes of food. Kids holding new shoes like Christmas morning. Late one night, Daniel texted her, "It's bigger than us now." She stared at the message, tears in her eyes because a single wrong number text had grown into a nationwide lifeline. Daniel didn't tell anyone he was going. No cameras, no reporters, just him, a paper bag in his hand, driving himself through streets far from the glass towers he called home. Sarah's apartment building looked the same as the first night he saw it, peeling paint, dim hallway lights, a place where dreams felt too small to fit. She opened the door, surprised, wiping her hands on a dish towel. "Daniel!" He didn't say much. Just stepped inside, nodded at the kids, set the bag on the table. Inside were 2 pairs of brand new shoes, sturdy ones, warm ones, not from a donation drive, not ordered online by some stranger across the country. He had picked them out himself. The boys tore into the bag, slipping them on right there on the worn-out floor. Their faces lit up like they'd been handed the world. Daniel leaned against the wall, watching quietly. He wasn't the CEO right now. Not the man who sold a penthouse or fought off critics. Just a friend. A man who remembered what it felt like to need something simple. And finally have it. Sarah caught his eye. Mouthed a thank you, she couldn't speak. Daniel only smiled, hands in his pockets, letting the moment belong to them. Sarah sat across from Daniel in the tiny office above the platform's new warehouse. The sound of delivery trucks rumbling outside. He slid an envelope across the table. Inside was a job offer. Full-time community director, benefits, steady pay, a real future. For a second, she didn't move. The woman who once begged strangers for grocery money now had a key role in the very project that changed her life. No more overnight shifts at the diner. No more worrying about eviction notices or empty fridges. Her kids could come home to a mom who wasn't always running out the door, exhausted and smelling like grease and coffee. Sarah blinked back tears, laughing softly. "I don't even own a suit," she whispered. Daniel smiled. "Good, we're not hiring a suit. We're hiring you." That night, Sarah told her boys over spaghetti at their wobbly kitchen table. "We're gonna be okay," she said, voice thick with emotion, and for the first time in years, she truly believed it. 1 year later, Daniel stood in the same office where it all began, staring at the numbers on the screen. $1 million. He leaned back slowly, letting the weight of it sink in. This wasn't venture capital or flashy sponsorships. This was teachers, truckers, single parents, retired veterans, ordinary people giving what they could because they believed in the mission. Sarah walked in, holding a stack of letters from families the platform had helped. Kids' drawings, thank you notes scribbled in crayon, photos of pantries filled and lights left on through the winter. She laid them on the table, smiling through tears. $1 million, she whispered, almost like she didn't believe it herself. Daniel nodded, his voice quiet. All from one wrong text. They both stood there for a moment, surrounded by the proof that strangers helping strangers wasn't just a headline anymore. It was a movement, an empire built on kindness, not greed, and it was only getting started. The ballroom glowed under crystal chandeliers, cameras flashing as Sarah stepped onto the stage. A year ago, she was a name on an eviction notice. Tonight, she was the face of a movement. Her hands shook around the microphone, but her voice carried steady. "Sometimes," she said, eyes glistening under the lights, "help comes from strangers, but it can turn them into family." She spoke about the first text, the groceries on her doorstep, the platform feeding families across the country, about how one man who didn't owe her a thing changed everything. The audience rose to their feet before she even finished. Applause thundered through the room, echoing off the walls like a promise. This was only the beginning. Daniel watched from the front row, pride in his eyes. The wrong number had brought them all here. The ballroom was still buzzing from the applause when Sarah stepped back to the microphone, her voice quieter now, almost a whisper meant for everyone in the room. "One text," she began, eyes sweeping across the crowd. One reply. "That's all it took." She paused, steadying herself. "I thought I was reaching into the dark." But someone reached back. The room hushed. Even the cameras seemed to hold their breath. "Sometimes," she continued softly, "hope doesn't come wrapped the way we expect. Sometimes it hides in accidents we don't understand. Until they change everything." Her gaze found Daniel in the front row. "This started with me, but tonight it belongs to all of us." And for the first time, the story felt complete. After the gala, when the lights dimmed and the crowd disappeared into the night, Daniel stayed behind. The man who once lived in penthouses above the clouds now stood alone on a quiet stage, looking out at the empty chairs where strangers had cheered a dream he almost gave up on. Reporters always asked him what he gave, The money, the platform, the long hours. He realized tonight they'd been asking the wrong question because what he received was so much greater. Purpose, that was the first thing. The kind of purpose that gets you out of bed when it's easier to stay down. Connection, to people who had nothing in common except the belief that kindness still mattered, and meaning. Something no dollar amount could buy, no skyscraper could hold, no headline could explain. He thought about the photo of Sarah's son in that too big jacket, about Sarah herself now running community programs, about the letters from families who no longer felt invisible. Daniel had chased wealth his whole life, but tonight, he finally understood. The richest thing he'd ever owned was this feeling right here, and it had started with a single text. The night after the gala, Sarah sat with her kids on their old faded couch, the same one they'd eaten countless dinners on when times were rough. The apartment looked different now. Not fancier, but warmer. There was laughter here again and food in the fridge, shoes by the door that actually fit. She pulled her kids close, their faces soft in the glow of the lamp. "Listen," she whispered, her voice catching just a little. "Never be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes people will surprise you." Her oldest leaned against her shoulder, eyes heavy with sleep. "Like the text?" Sarah smiled. That text. The one she almost didn't send. The one that turned strangers into lifelines, turned hunger into hope. "Yeah," she said softly. "Like the text." Miracles don't always come big and loud. Sometimes they start small. So small you don't even see them coming. The youngest tugged at her sleeve. "Even for us?" She kissed the top of his head. "Especially for us." The kids curled into her arms, and for the first time in years, Sarah felt the ground under her feet steady and sure. Hope, she thought, really had found them here. Daniel leaned over the conference table. Maps and charts spread like a living thing across the wood. The numbers weren't just numbers anymore. They were faces, families. What started with a single wrong text now had volunteers in 10 states, meal deliveries in underfunded schools, winter coats for kids who used to shiver at bus stops, but the boardroom talk had shifted. Not if, but where next. "We've had calls from Canada," someone said. "And the UK, a church group in Kenya wants to partner." Daniel listened, quiet but certain. The dream wasn't his alone anymore. It belonged to everyone who believed a stranger's kindness could change a life. Sarah sat in on the meeting, her notebook open but untouched. She watched the plans unfold like a map, to places she never thought she'd see. Airlines offering cargo space, tech companies waiving fees, governments asking for meetings. It felt unstoppable now when a tide rolling forward. Daniel finally spoke, his voice calm but carrying weight. "Let's take it global," he said. No one should go hungry because help was too far away. And just like that, the next chapter began. Sunlight spilled across the park like it had been waiting for this moment. Sarah's kids tore through the grass, shoes bright and clean, laughter shaking the air. They chased each other under trees heavy with leaves, the kind of carefree joy Sarah hadn't seen on their faces in years. She sat on the blanket, hair loose, a smile tugging at her mouth every time one of them shouted, "Mom, watch this!" Daniel stood off to the side, hands in his pockets. No cameras, no reporters, just him. The wind tugged at his jacket as he watched her throw her head back and laugh at something the youngest said. It hit him then, the full circle of it all. The wrong text, the sleepless nights, the betrayals, the breakthroughs, this was the point. Not the headlines, not the money, just this. A mother and her kids, finally free enough to laugh in the sun. The screen fades to black, but the words stay like an echo you can't ignore. A single line appears in white. If one wrong text can change the world, what could yours do? There's no pushy music, no booming voiceover. Just the quiet invitation hanging in the air, like someone handing you a key you didn't know you needed. Stories like Sarah's didn't start perfect. They started messy, desperate, human. And look what happened. The platform's logo glows softly in the corner, almost shy, as if it knows the power it now carries. Subscribe, the final words say, simple and direct. Because maybe the next miracle isn't written yet. Maybe it's waiting for the courage of someone watching right now. Someone like you.